Call the meeting to order at 7:01 on Monday, August 2nd. And to start out, we've got some consent agenda items, including the minutes of the July 19th, 2021 school board meeting, some professional staffing recommendations, and co-curricular staffing recommendations. And I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
What's that?
Co-curricular.
And co-curricular.
Recommendations too.
Yep.
Yeah, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Bruce?
I'll second.
Arlen, second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. And we've got some personnel items, now no vote necessary. And that would bring us to public comments, and we do have some public letters that were sent in that asked that they be read at the meeting, so we will go ahead and do that at this point. Bruce, why don't you start?
Yes, this is from Jeff Krull. Good evening, school board members and administration. As we enter into the new school year, we appreciate all the conversations, thought, and planning that you have done and continue to do for our McFarland students and staff and their well-being. As you make decisions on mask requirements, we ask you please consider all of the data. As we've learned over the last couple of years, if you don't do the research and actually read the studies that are now available, you don't get the full story. I don't care what single news source anyone proclaims has all the right answers, but that just simply is not the case anymore. In fact, I would encourage you to not base your opinions on anything you see or hear on the news, but instead read actual studies on the pandemic, as they are plentiful and informative. Some of my favorites are the CDC, WHO, and the PHMDC websites. They don't always agree with their public recommendations, but if you dig into the studies that they are basing their opinions and recommendations on, you can read them and get the full story to help make informed decisions. The decision in particular I would like to bring my and many McFarland parents' informed opinion on to you is on masking in schools. We ask that you consider making masks optional for K-12 students and staff. While cases are up as of late with the Delta variant, hospitalizations and deaths have decreased while vaccination rates continue to climb and therapeutics continue to improve. Dane County has among the highest vaccination rates in the country. Per PHMDC's data dashboard a few days ago, July 29th, currently in Dane County, 95% of those age 65 plus and high risk are vaccinated, and 70% of all Dane County residents have at least one vaccination, and this extremely high percentage even includes the 0 to 11-year-old children who are not even eligible yet. Also, hospitalizations, ICU, and death metrics are flat or down in Dane County. Case numbers are up, but this is obviously not translating into severe illness. I am sure we're all aware as well of students and staff wearing masks in schools having reported various complications such as headaches, not being able to focus, anxiety, and being nauseous. This is the case for some McFarland students and staff as well. Unfortunately, not many studies are focusing on these complaints and the potential long-term effect these symptoms have on our students and staff. Just as it is wrong to discount any health or well-being related complaint, it is wrong to discount this. Based on all these facts, we advocate a path forward in our McFarland schools to make mask wearing optional for all McFarland students and staff. Thank you for your time in educating yourselves and making fact-based decisions that have the health and well-being of all our McFarland students and staff in mind.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Crow. Arlen, you want to go ahead?
All right. I have one from Heather Guy, and she's 10 Bellingrath Court, and she wants to talk about masks. The Delta variant of COVID is twice as contagious as the original virus. The CDC considers it more infectious than chickenpox. It is even infecting people who are fully vaccinated. Please, please, please require everyone in the school building to wear masks regardless of vaccination status. It is the best way to keep our children and staff safe. Thank you.
Excellent. Kate?
Okay, this one is from Brad Samuel, 5409 North Pass, and the subject is masks in school. I'd like it known I'm against mask mandates for our kids in school. Make it optional for those that are still concerned, but not mandatory for all. Directly from the CDC website, 84.7% of Dane County residents 12 years and older have been vaccinated. 98.4% of people 65 and older are fully vaccinated. 98.4%, according to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, there hasn't been one death to a child under the age of 20 years old. Last year, the goal was to protect the elderly by trying to reduce transmission in school. The elderly are now protected, and fortunately, the young aren't dying from this. What are we still trying to mitigate? We're at a point now where wearing a mask should be a personal choice, not a mandate. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll take the last one from Liz Reiser Lober. Excuse me if I mispronounced the last name. Dear members of the school board and administration, it's Liz Reiser Lober at 5060 Frost Astor Court. As you know, I have written in more than a few times and am writing to express my concern for the district's 2021-2022 plan. It is likely too similar to last year's plan. Unfortunately, just as data is released, the rule book seems to change as the Delta variant is quite different from all the readily available studies on the original COVID and the Alpha strain. Primarily, I ask that you consult more than one medical advisor throughout the year. Having one person's opinion seems silly when we have the UW and a community of scientific minds nearby. The main point during a pandemic is to mandate masks in our schools. The other concerns would be how the mask mandate is going to be enforced, how lunch, music, and PE, as well as recess times, would be handled. Finally, how quarantine, as well as keeping sick individuals at home, will be communicated. Additional layers of protection for classrooms, but especially lunch times, would be to keep kids in cohorts, space as much as possible, cross-ventilation with fans, and sanitation, hand-washing practices. Testing of symptomatic staff and students would also be recommended, and it would seem effective to include testing of asymptomatic close contacts. Another question regards quarantine, along with a definition of a close contact, since the numbers are entirely different with the Delta variant. Masks, 6 feet distancing, 15 minutes are arbitrary with 1000x viral load, unless everyone is wearing a KN95 mask. Keep in mind how difficult it would be to keep other kids from getting sick with chickenpox. If one kid was sick with the chickenpox, they can infect another 6 to 9 kids. That's the level to go to in keeping kids and staff protected, since the Delta variant has the same RO. At an earlier meeting, let me check. 6 to 9 kids, that is with chickenpox. If one kid was sick with the chickenpox, they can infect another 6 to 9 kids. That is the level to go to in keeping kids and staff protected, since the Delta variant has the same RO. At the earlier meeting, I used the analogy of Swiss cheese and needing multiple layers to bulk up protection and have a solid barrier. That is what is needed against the Delta variant, even when vaccination is seen as simply a layer of protection. Sincerely, Dr. Liz Reiser-Lober. Thank you very much. Moving on, we have the business manager's
Craig?
district administrative
Craig,
report.
we need to invite members of the
Oh,
public.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Sorry, Angie.
If you'd like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the Q&A, we would ask that you type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you have discussed this item prior to the meeting with either a district administrator or President Howery. After submitting the information, I will transfer you over to speak to the board.
you.
We do not have anyone registered at this point. We'll give it one more minute.
Okay. So, moving on, district administrators report or administration report.
Well, I wrote McFarland minutes, and that has all of the information, but I would like to add one item that I'd like you to consider. It's not, and that would be is, in the past, you've had work sessions at 6 o'clock, and then the regular meeting starts at 7. If it would be amenable, I would like to be able to start all of our meetings at 6 or 6:30, and then just flow right from there. So if it has a working session, we can start it then. If it doesn't, we'll start a regular meeting. So that all of our meetings would start at the same time, irregardless of a work session. If we wanted, we could put discussion items first, so you could talk about all the items before you moved into action. But I'm basically asking if you'd consider starting our meetings earlier at 6 or 6:30.
Discussion? Anybody have insurmountable issues with starting that early in terms of work schedules and that sort of thing? I know it's difficult.
Yeah.
Would 6:30 work?
6:30 would probably be best.
What happens then when we have our closed sessions before, we have some other?
We wouldn't have it before 6:30 meeting.
You'd have it.
No, then we'd just start, then at 6:30 would be the closed session,
Yeah.
and we'd move from that. So we wouldn't start any earlier, it would start
So then
then.
our, as far as the time that we are consistent with our starting of this meeting will be on a little variable then.
A little bit.
Depending on if you had a closed session, then it would, whenever the closed session would be done, this session would start, rather than having any gaps between. If we didn't have a closed session,
The
so,
meeting would-
let's say it was 6:30, every meeting would start at 6:30, we'd be here with whatever was our first motion business, whether that be a closed session or an open session item.
So do you think there's any, with the public, if we've been at 7 o'clock forever, or 6, yeah.
Except when you do your work sessions, then
Yeah.
you're at 6.
Yeah, that's true, but we don't do them as common as we do.
No, no.
So I didn't know what the consistency, what you guys, that's my kicker, that's all it is. It's how you guys feel about, you know, you any concerns about that or not? And if you don't, that's fine, I just want you guys to understand that.
Bruce?
I didn't realize that, Arlen. To me, it makes more sense to go a consistent time and just keep it the same. And I do think in a way we could, especially as I'm getting to be a senior citizen here, that, you know, he's kind of late. No, I would prefer starting earlier, but I understand for you guys who are
Well,
working.
I want to, I mean, people always know when the board meetings start. They've done for so long time. There isn't, are they lined up out there? No. You know what I mean? But sometimes when there is an issue, they know it starts at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I never
So-
thought of that, Arlen, that, you know, the idea of having that was so that it would be starting around 7, I mean, give or take, depending on how
Yeah.
long the closed session is. So that makes sense, but I can also understand for someone who's commuting, but also for us old guys, you know, get us to bed on time, you
We
know.
get our beauty sleep.
So
I'm beyond
I would say 6:30 probably would be the ideal time, just
Okay.
because that allows people in the public to come home.
That's what I'm
from
thinking
work.
too, yeah,
6 is hard for me.
yeah, it would be very hard.
Well,
for
and
you.
Christine may have trouble as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's
I'm not
here.
sure.
And this is just a discussion item, because if it is something, if you'd like 6:30,
Yep.
you know, then we could move that. I mean, one of the things that I have done in the past that you don't have on your agenda is I've let public comments go at the beginning and end of the meeting. So that if something happens during the meeting, then public can comment at the end also, so that if you say something, they don't have to wait 2 weeks to make a comment. They can do it at the end of the meeting.
I think one thing that we need to do, and this would be, you know, duplicating efforts from in the past, we have to assure people that during the public comments, there's no discussion. You know, I think when Mr. Triplin called in, you know, the other night, I think he was anticipating us answering questions that he asked during the comment session. So just to reiterate that it's simply a platform to make your comments and there won't be any discussion. So, 6:30? Should we try it?
That's fine.
Then,
Let's make a motion.
later on, in the not because it's an action item tonight, but I will put on as an action item for next.
Sure, that's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll move on to business manager's report. Jeff, take it away.
So I provided you a handout that's our PowerPoint this evening. I'm excited that we get to talk about something that's routine in nature, per se. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update about the 21-22 fiscal year. As the last time we had met, the governor had not done any of his change to how the wording was in the budget. So I wanted to cover that, but I also wanted to just kind of give a little bit more of a prelude to what we end up seeing between now and when we set the levy prior to November 1st. So with that, page 1, I just wanted you to see budget at a glance. Revenue, we're estimating right now at $33.5 million. And our expense, we're looking at $34.5 million. So right there, that's what we had in place prior to the governor doing anything. And the governor still hasn't had DPI finalize how the extra $550 million is going to be shared across the state. The best guess from a lot of us is that it'll be a per pupil allocation, which if you divide by the number of students that were in public education, you're looking at about $117 per student. So that's about $270,000 to our school district. So our net estimate for our budget, not including any WEVA budget, is a deficit of $700,000. Now, WEVA revenues will balance out this net deficit.
They'll be as high as 700,000?
So I'll take you then to the next page, so that we can kind of go through history. And I thought it would be good that, again, that we try to look at when WEVA came on board back in 2009, 2010. The net to the district was about $300,000. And if you look at the right-hand side there where you see the salmon color, you'll see those revenues were offsetting expenditures on the district budget entirely. In 2018, 2019, which was a goal, we had started to move out of relying on WEVA revenues minus expense, so that we were able to then start increasing our fund balance, to then also avoid short-term borrowing. So in 2018, 2019, the school district also stopped having to short-term borrow. Short-term borrowing for our public, I suppose I should have my microphone on. I apologize. Hopefully I was talking loud enough. So short-term borrowing, the school district, similar to other school districts across the state of Wisconsin, used to have to borrow, and still many do, borrow funds for operating cash flow. The school district has built up enough reserves to be able to fund itself throughout the high periods of expenditure and the low periods of revenue. So part of that has been the fact that we've been migrating away from inserting WEVA revenue into our budget. As of this year, if we go further down into 2021 budget and actual, this past year we had estimated about $1 million worth of revenue over expenditures on the WEVA management side of things. And the actual was almost 1.5 million. Obviously, they had about 1,000 more students this last year that flowed through their, I was going to say walls, but I guess that wouldn't be appropriate. So we are looking again to kind of go back to an estimate of for 21-22 of about a difference of revenues versus expenses for WEVA of about $1 million. So that would help us offset our deficit. Again, we're very unique compared to many other school districts. So that's kind of like the nutshell of where we're at with our finances for our upcoming annual meeting, which will be on October 25th. However, there's a few things that'll change by the time we get there. Number one, enrollment. We do our final enrollment count on the third Friday in September. Our equalized value, and I'll get into equalized value, that's the distribution model of our levy. That's how it makes it to your tax bill. State Equalization Aid, we have a July 1 estimate from the state of Wisconsin. They're usually within 1%, give or take, of what their final amount will be, which we receive on October 15th. That helps us then go through the revenue cap process, and I do have a little slide with a little bit more information about that in a moment. And then we get to the final tax levy amounts, and then that coincides with whatever revised budgets we had with any of the shifts we had with enrollment and expenses and the final revenue cap. So, we're one of the few entities that starts operating a budget on July 1st, and we really don't get to set anything in stone until the end of October. But this is how we live in 3 fiscal years usually at a time. Enrollment. Just to give you kind of a snapshot, we're at about 2291. That's our estimate for what our full-time equivalency will be when we hit our third Friday count. That's up 42 students. Our non-resident open enrollment, we're looking at about 176 FTE. That's going down about 20. That's due to graduation. For those that haven't been on the board for a while, each year we set how many openings we have for open enrollment. And for a number of years, for about a 12-year period of time, we were able to allow in 25 to 30 students. Those grades are starting to graduate. In the last 3 years, we have not been able to open up any seats. So it's going to continue to go down. Based on some of our subdivisions that are being built, the potential for the Yahara planning zone area that's north of the landfill, that's been studied. That study took place 7 years ago. We'll see if that starts to pop in the next few years. So there is potential that we'll continue to have growth, which will not open up any open enrollment seats. We also have a little known agreement that is between the Oregon School District and the McFarland School District. That includes about 20 students. That agreement is 10 years old and is expiring, but has a rollover provision. And that group of residents may choose to end up petitioning again to have their land transferred into the McFarland School District versus the Oregon School District. I know I'm going through quite a bit of information here. If we need to go back to any of the slides, you can always let me know to slow down. Equalized value. Again, this is the distribution mechanism. You take your levy, you divide it by the equalized value, and it migrates out to people's property tax bills. As a total, we're looking at about 5% increase in our equalized value. We're looking at, in the top little spreadsheet there, under 21-22, we're looking at just about 1.7 billion in value. Now, I thought it was interesting if we wanted to look at what is our equalized value done in 10 years. It's just about 50% growth in 10 years. So, boy, 5% on average, that's pretty good. That includes 2 major dips as well. So that's impressive for the area. What's unique, and I didn't put it on here, but if we were to take our tax levy, our equalized value has grown almost 50%, where our tax levy has grown only about 30%. So our equalized value has been outpacing our tax levy, if you were to look at just the tax rate portion of things. Some people need the visual, and I didn't put a map in here, but our taxing districts include Village of McFarland, Town of Dunn, City of Madison, Town of Blooming Grove, which is continually moving into the City of Madison, Town of Pleasant Springs, and the Town of Cottage Grove. Town of Cottage Grove represents about 1% of our school district, whereas the Village of McFarland represents 65%. So that's the distribution model. The next page is a revenue cap sheet that I'm not going to go through because I have a little bit better of a slide after it, but I wanted to just share with you, there's a lot of numbers that we get poured into and simplified down to what I call from cap to levy. So we'll take our revenue cap and start working through, it's estimated at almost 26.8 million. We get a certain dollar amount per every student. That's it in a nutshell. You take that cap and you minus out the aid, so the green number of 13 million, and that's what leaves you your restricted levies. That's Fund 10, 27, and 41. 10 is our general fund, 27 is our special ed fund, and Fund 41 is our capital projects fund. Those are all part of one. Additionally, you have referendum approved debt, which is just about 4 million. And then you have Fund 80, which is our capital projects, our recreation community service fund, and that is just over 400,000. So that's where you get the 4.4 million. When you add that together, we're looking at an estimated levy, again, which will change. There'll be final numbers when we get to the annual meeting. It's a whopping $76,000 increase, or 0.5% increase overall. So a very controlled amount. Again, that's due to the fact that the legislature gave districts no authority in their revenue caps for additional money, nor did they give the ability, because of the timing, any district the opportunity to actually go to a referendum if they actually needed to do that prior to setting, because of when the dates are controlled.
How, I know that there was concern about the amount that the legislature approved for public education to adversely affect our ability to get some federal education funds. Is that still the case, or have they figured out a workaround for that? Because they didn't bump the money.
So you're speaking to the provision of if they didn't allocate a certain dollar amount, they at this point have assured us that they've taken care of that, the legislature. That's going to be, again, a process. That's over at DPI, probably the Fiscal Bureau as well as the auditors, and then back to the federal government, I'm sure. The next steps we would have on our, this is, again, we'll have our third Friday enrollment. We'll receive our equalized value, our official equalized value on October 1st. We'll get our state equalization aid final on October 15th. Then we can take care of the revenue cap, and then we can come to you and the public for a final vote on the 21-22 fiscal year on October 25th. And that would conclude my report on what's changed since the last time, and a little prelude to our annual meeting.
Excellent. That's good news.
It's great news.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, John. Any other questions or comments?
Are we still playing the lottery? I'm just kidding.
No comment.
Okay, moving on, we have some action items. First off is a discussion and possible action on appointment of 2021-2022 medical advisor. As per policy, annually, the district will arrange for a qualified individual to serve as the medical advisor.
Before we get into this, one of the things I wanted to bring up and mention to the board is that I've received a number of emails on this topic, and most of the emails, the general theme is that we depend on one person, the medical advisor, to give us direction for, in this case, the COVID-19 virus. And I wanted to tell you that is not the case. When I make a recommendation dealing with COVID-19 and the virus, the pandemic, the places that I'm going to for information and for advice are such as the public health of Madison and Dane County. So we meet with them on a regular basis, the superintendents in the area. The Department of Human Services, the American Academy of And then we meet with all the Dane County soups when we have it. There's a combination of medical advisors that talk to us. So we look at numerous organizations in the health field to give us advice on COVID-19, on what their recommendations are, what they see happening, what's coming down. So as our district, we are not dependent on an individual to give us the direction of what we need to go. The medical advisor's position is important. And when I would talk with that individual on a COVID-19 is if we had a case that was unique to McFarland, then I may talk with that advisor on that unique case because it is unique to McFarland. The medical advisor, most of the time, what that individual will do is it will help us with medication, the medication and how we distribute it to students, in that type of a process. COVID-19 was something that none of us had expected a year and a half ago. But it's not like the medical advisor is the one that the school district looks to give us the sole direction. We look at numerous organizations specializing in health to talk with us and give us the information that we need to then make the recommendations that I do to you. And I didn't know if that was really clear or if that was understood, so I thought it was very important, before you start this action item, if you decide to take action, is to realize that this is not the individual we depend on solely for COVID-19. We have a host of organizations that we work with in the medical field to give us direction and insight on what they think is the best things for us to do. Now, to go back to the individual, we did put out a call asking if there were individuals interested in this. This is a voluntary position. This is not a paid position. We did have 3 individuals submit varying levels of interest, which I put forth in McFarland minutes. So that's just what I wanted to say before you end up, if you took any motion, so you had an understanding, and so that the people in the community listening to this also would have some understanding of the organizations and institutions we go to for advice when looking to make a recommendation.
Okay.
I really appreciated all the information you sent out to us, because it was in a way enlightening for myself. But am I correct that you're meeting with the superintendents and this board?
Right, we meet every
Twice.
2 weeks.
Oh, every 2 weeks?
Yeah, we were meeting weekly, it's now bi-weekly.
Okay,
And the health department and the public health, Madison-Dane County, meet with us for a portion of every meeting to talk about this one particular subject, so
okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Plus, all of the information they send out to us on a very regular basis.
To add, Dr. Anderson, also the Department of UW Pediatrics has also been a part of those meetings, and UW Pediatrics has coordinated all of the medical advisors across the state, not just our county, so that they had a voice as well that was collaborative throughout the whole state. So, and UW has the footprint across the whole state. So, again, going to Wayne's point, those meetings have included lots of individuals. Yes, some school districts did have committees, some didn't, but in totality, the superintendents were relying on public health, Madison-Dane County, and UW Pediatrics that were already talking to the statewide network of medical advisors.
Good information, thank you. Any other discussion that anybody interested in moving along from last time we spoke? Have any comments, any feelings one way or another? I would like personally to get this taken care of.
I agree.
I do too.
I think we should move along, and what I'm gleaning here from Dr. Anderson's minutes is that Dr. Murowan is interested in fulfilling the role again. We've got a Dr. Heidi Kloster who was still deciding if she would be interested. Where did that fall?
She's still interested, she would be most interested in assisting the medical advisor.
Okay. And the Dr. Molly, like Naif or Neff, I would imagine, is interested but not a licensed physician. Based on discussions that we have had leading up to this point, in our general experience with Dr. Murowan throughout the last couple of years, I think I would move to appoint Dr. Tom Murowan to the position of medical advisor to the McFarland School District for the 2021-2022 school year.
Craig, before you do that, actually, I just, one question. Since
We can, if I can get a second, then we can have discussion.
Okay, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second
Okay.
for Dr. Murowan and discussion.
Yeah, the only question I had about Dr. Heidi Klossner, we've never done that, or have we done that in the past?
I don't think we've ever had an assistant to the,
Is there any reason why we couldn't do it?
I don't believe so.
Because I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's good to have, you know, that collaboration between experts. And I think that would also make, I think the people would feel good about
I
it.
think we can probably make something like that work kind of behind the scenes
Yeah.
after we get a medical advisor in place.
But
Well-
I think you have to think about what you're asking for. Do you want her to be like a secondary advisor on COVID-related things or a secondary advisor on all medical?
Everything.
Well, it's a good point. That's an
Yeah.
excellent point. I hadn't thought that way.
So, I mean, based on what Dr. Anderson says, there's a lot of already medical advice, you know, coming at them from a COVID-related aspect. So we
Maybe it's
could do
unnecessary.
it, but I don't know that it's completely necessary unless we feel like we want to have somebody advising secondary, you know, with specifics to McFarland.
May I ask a question? What happens if the advisor gets sick?
Well, to, you know,
Then do we have somebody to fall back on?
in a normal school year, right?
Regardless,
So a
yeah.
non-COVID, so prior to COVID-19,
Yeah.
the number of times that we would consult with a medical advisor are very limited. In other words, it's not something that you do very often. There may be medicine that goes to a
Yes.
particular child. You may need to have some consultation on, you know, the type of medicine and maybe the effects that the medicine have. You know, maybe how it's distributed, they would advise. But I mean, it's not a position that would have a lot. If there was something and a medical advisor was sick and it was an emergency situation, then we would contact one of the other hospitals and ask the question.
Anything else?
No?
Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, so moving on, we have discussion and possible action to hold a special Board of Education meeting on Monday, August 9th, 2021, to act on COVID-19 protocols for the 2021-22 school year.
So late, excuse me.
Oh, I was just gonna, administration recommends considering scheduling a special meeting on Monday, August 9th, 2021 at 6:30 PM to act on COVID-19 protocols for the 2021-22 school year.
6:30 or 5:30?
6:30. Oh, no, I'm sorry,
It
it
is-
is 5:30.
Yes.
Well, that was just a recommendation. And the reason I have this on is that tonight I'm going to give you my recommendations for what I think the protocols should be dealing with COVID-19 for this school year. So we'll have a discussion. But that's not action because you haven't had a chance to discuss. But I know that we don't want to wait a long time, at least I don't want to wait a long time. So I would like to have the official approval of whatever those recommendations will be next Monday. My plan is after we have the discussion tonight, is to send out a notice to all staff and parents on what my recommendations will be and the outcome of our discussion on that, so that they will all know in advance, but then for the board to take formal action on what it wants to do a week from today. So it could make a change over the next week. You might have comments that would require change. But I want to let people know what the results of our discussion, so I'll do that tomorrow. But I'd like you to take formal action rather than 2 weeks in a week. That's why I'm asking for the special board meeting.
I think that's appropriate. You know, we're getting significant pressure from the community to not even necessarily have, you know, this plan or that plan, but to have a plan in place as quickly as possible so that parents can go ahead and do their scheduling and planning, and we just give the community an idea of where we're headed. So that makes sense to me. And anyone else have any issues with that? Just getting together for a.
My only issue is I will be gone, but I'll join via Zoom.
Okay.
So,
Okay, could we do
Alright.
6 o'clock instead
Yep,
of 5:30?
yep.
Okay.
That's why I said, or a time that's convenient.
Yep.
Yeah, because I would be coming in work clothes.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I've already done that, so.
Knee deep.
No.
There you go.
So,
All right, so, so then I move to hold a special Board of Education meeting on Monday, August 9th at 6 PM to act on masking and COVID-19 protocols for the start of the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? I assume we're gonna have discussion here?
nope, your discussion on it is later on.
Okay. So, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. So we will be here at 6 o'clock PM, 1 week from today, Monday, August 9th, to act on our COVID-19 protocols for the upcoming school year.
We don't have a village meeting that night, do we?
I
No?
don't have one on my calendar.
Okay, good. I had something on the phone, I don't know what it was.
Okay, moving on. Action on designation of fund balance for the 2021-22 school year, 2020-21 carryover. Administration recommends approval of the following restricted fund balance for ending fiscal year 2020-2021.
I move approval.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. All right, action on approval of revised professional staff employee handbook. Administration recommends approval of the attached revision to the professional staff employee handbook, attachments 1. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move to accept the proposed revision to the 2021-2022 Professional Staff Employee Handbook.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Discussion, we'll move on to discussion items. First is a process for creation of the 2022-2023 school calendar.
And what, I put out a blog earlier this week, and just as a side note, I guess I could have mentioned that I did talk with the Thistle, and they are going to run my blogs on a weekly basis. So not only will they be on our website, they'll also be in the paper to help communicate with the public, so they will have an opportunity. And I know this is the start of the school year, so talk about already creating the calendar for the next school year may seem like, God, aren't we rushing it a little bit? But in actuality, I think a calendar, like many other things, should have a great deal of input from staff and community. One of the items that the professional staff has asked us to look at is time where they could meet to do certain planning and professional development on a more regular basis. I think that if we do that, and I think we should consider it, that we want to, one, talk about this with the community and with parents so that they can determine and have plenty of time to think about what its impact might be. Give us an opportunity to think about childcare. How would we potentially look at childcare solutions, because I know that that's one of the issues, and start creating a draft. So one of the things that it's my goal is to start creating a draft calendar, sending it out to have people look at it well in advance, make modifications and changes, get input from not only our staff, but our parents to find out things that they value. And then, so, you know, you'll see multiple revisions until we get to potentially November, when hopefully I would have a final draft for you to review and then act on in December, either the end of November or December, so that we could then publish the calendar. But I want to take a look at what are all the options that people would like us to consider. So if there are things that you would like to see in the calendar, just get those to me. And I will probably put my first draft together, probably next month in September. And I will start communicating with parents through not only my blog, but through different emails, things that we are considering, explaining it to them and offering to answer any questions they might have, so that by the time we eventually have a calendar set for you to vote on, people will be well informed about what's in the calendar, what, you know, what it would look like for next year, and have had a chance to make any comments or suggestions for how it could be improved.
This process you've used before
Yes.
successfully?
Yep, yep. In fact, for a lot of districts, they were kind of shocked because they never had much input. And I'm a huge one for input. I
think you may
believe,
find that here as well.
yes. So, once they come to realize how much that I truly am listening and paying attention to what they have to say, it doesn't mean I will always agree or I can always do all the things that they want, but I will always consider it and put that into the plans as I go forward. So by the time that you actually take a vote, you will have had, you know, people ask questions, we'll give answers. So you'll have a pretty firm about, yes, this has had a lot of input into it. And the calendar truly is one of those things where you have to put in so many hours. If you have longer breaks, you go longer the end of the year. If you have shorter breaks, you get out earlier than the year. So there's a set number of hours that the Department of Public Instruction says that every grade level needs to meet. So in the end, we will make sure that our calendar meets or exceeds those hours, but it'll be arranged in a format that most people will find acceptable.
Do you, historically, do you find that you get a significant amount of input from the community for something like the calendar?
It depends. The things that usually you hear the most about are, in the past, would be vacation times, certain days or certain holidays, a combination of 3-day weekends. I mean, it's those types of things. I did have in-services on a more regular basis for a period of time, Mount Horeb, and we had input on that. Like I said, usually the issue with those that need to be addressed early is childcare. If you can arrange childcare, I have always found the community very supportive with finding ways to let our staff gain professional development time and collaboration time. But they want to know that we've thought and addressed the issue of who will take care of my child in that time periods when I may not be home, or, you know, or it may be difficult for me to find childcare. And once they know and feel comfortable with that, then that's usually acceptable. But you have to figure out how you can do that.
And the process may be somewhat complicated this school year, given the fact that we've committed to make at least an attempt at addressing the early release request from our teachers, which obviously is going to have a significant, anything that we do in terms of that is going to have significant impact on the calendar.
Well, and there are, you know, there are ways to lessen the impact. We have numerous all-day in-services now for professional development. You can break those into smaller chunks, since it's not by days, it's by minutes. You could take a full day and break it into potentially 3 partial days with having the same impact. So those are all the things that we'll look at. But I just wanted, if you have things that you would like to see in the drafts, please get them to me. And I will start communicating out drafts probably to staff and parents next month.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone?
I think it's a great idea.
Discussion on masking and other health protocols for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right, here are what my recommendations are. This has been probably one of the topics that I will tell you has probably consumed a fair amount of my thinking time. So I hope I haven't burnt out all the dendrums up there, and there's a few left. But the first thing I want to start with is that the recommendation is that we are back fully in person for the 2021-2022 school year. Before anything else, it's that we are going to offer the we are going to offer in-person education. I am a strong proponent, though, when we did virtual education last year across the state, we did the very best job we could looking at the considerations that we had to deal with in trying to keep students and staff safe. This year, I think if you take a look at the Center for Disease Control, Dane County, or Public Health Madison and Dane County, they are urging schools to have in-person education. But to have in-person education and to have it safe, there are other protocols that we need to put in place. The first one, I think, is masking. And I know that you've already had 4 public comments on that, but what my recommendation will be is that all students and staff, early childhood through 12, will wear masks indoors regardless of vaccination status. I know that that's not always preferred by all individuals, but right now, Dane County, or Public Health, Madison, Dane County, it's a big acronym. I always have to, I wouldn't even remember the words. And the Center for Disease Control would say that if we want to have students in person and we want to make it the safest, we should have everyone masked. Masking, is an inconvenience? Yes, it can be an inconvenience. For me especially, because when I will only see half of a face, it will be harder for me to recognize staff and students. But I will tell you, I would rather err on the safety to make certain that every person that enters these buildings and enters the various schools in our district is safe than the other way around. I would gladly put up with an inconvenience to have a greater amount of safety. So my recommendation is that we would go masking for all students and staff, regardless of vaccination status. Next, I would say common sense, but if you're sick, stay home. So if you are having symptoms and you aren't feeling at 100%, stay home. You don't know what type of disease you might have. If you think you're having symptoms with COVID, go get into testing, go and get tested. We are also looking at having the ability to test in our schools. So to test here whether or not you might have it. But if you're not feeling well, stay home. Irregardless of what it is, there's no sense in potentially passing on your illness or potential illness to someone else. Practicing physical hygiene, in other words. I think most people are like me. I probably use more soap and water and hand sanitizer in the last year and a half than I have in my entire life from the time I started. And I'm 66 years old, so there's like 63 and a half years of addition to do that amount. But we are continuing because that is one way to kill germs. We are doing ventilation. So the ventilation that you have, we have different filters, MERV 13, filtration systems, so that as we have airflow to help take out germs. We are doing cleaning protocols. We will continue those. They were put in place last year. We'll continue to put those in place in the upcoming year. So in order to make things as safe and sanitary as possible. We are going to take a look at testing so that if we are trying to get the testing, which would be at no cost, to have a testing within our own buildings. That hasn't been secured yet, but we are looking at that, and we think that there will be a very good chance that we'll be able to offer the COVID-19 tests here, so that we'll be able to check to find out, whether or not a person may have the COVID-19 virus. We're taking a look at, we are not going to be socially distanced as far as 6 feet, but I want to read a paragraph that came out from Public Health Madison-Dane County that dealt with this. It said, "The CDC continues to recommend that people who are not fully vaccinated maintain physical distance of at least 3 feet from other people at school. However, a school or district should not exclude students from in-person learning to keep a minimum distance requirement. Several studies from the 2021 school year show low COVID-19 transmission levels among students in schools that had less than 6 feet of physical distance when the school implemented universal masking and other layered prevention strategies," which is what we're doing. So we won't have 6 feet or 3 feet. We will try to space individuals with the space that we have available. And the reason for this is that we want to make sure that all of our students come back to school. And in some of our classrooms, we could not physically distance at that and still have them come back. So, we won't be socially distanced, but we are going to distance appropriately, and we are going to have the multi-layered approach to make it as safe as possible. In looking at recesses for our elementary schools, EC through 8, right now, all of the principals are recommending, so it means I'm recommending, that we will mask during recess. This means that if there is, someone does test positive for COVID, that if you are masked, then you don't have to be quarantined. So we want to keep as many students in school as possible each and every day. So roughly, taking a look, those are the types of things, and I have seasonal allergies. And I've been fully vaccinated. So we are taking a look at all of these things, and we think that this will provide an opportunity for our students and staff to be here for in-person instruction and yet maintain an environment that should be safe and healthy for all individuals.
And I'm assuming that we're going to go ahead and continue with the co-curricular activities, the music, the drama, the
Right,
athletics.
we are taking a look at various things, like I know for band, they're looking at covers, which is something that is considered acceptable. We don't know choir yet, I don't have an answer for that.
Probably for horns, I would think.
Horn covers.
So I don't have an answer for how we're gonna do choir. I've contacted Public Health Madison-Dane County for their recommendations. We're
Okay.
waiting to talk to the choral teachers. Potentially, at least in the warm months, to have that inside. I mean, one of the things that I'm hoping, and I'm an optimist, is that we have a vaccination for students that are under the age of 12. Because one of the things, and I didn't mention it because it's not in our control, is that the first step to ending this is vaccinations. To get as many people vaccinated as possible. In your letters, it states Dane County has done a very good job of getting vaccination, but we don't have vaccines ready yet for students under the age of 12. We're hoping that we can do that because that will modify it. Now, one of the things I'm also asking is that we put this as a regular agenda item on each month, at the beginning of each month. Because as situations change, we may be able to make different changes in our protocols, depending on what's happening with the various. If we end up finding that we are successfully combating the virus and it's lessening, maybe there are certain things we can loosen up on. Hopefully it doesn't go the other way, but if it were, we could make potentially, different decisions. But we take this on each month so that we can make adjustments as necessary depending on conditions, how they change.
Kate?
So one thing I have a question about is, just in general, your protocols for close contacts and things like that in the schools.
We are if they're within the classroom, there's seating charts and all that, and if they're masked, then talking with the Public Health Madison and Dane County, and they're looking at CDC, is that if they're masked, then the person that tests positive for COVID would need to be quarantined. And there's 3 different options on the length of days, depending on the protocol you follow for testing and how you test. But the other individuals would not have to be quarantined. If they are not masked, like it was at lunch, we are having seating charts, at least in the elementary grades. We do have cameras. We are trying to provide as much space at the high school level as feasible, so that if we will be able to determine who were the close contacts during the times in which an individual may have been unmasked.
Okay, and then if they are vaccinated, they can provide proof of their vaccination and not have to,
Right, if you
Leave
are
school.
vaccinated, then you wouldn't, and we would then find the determination if that individual is vaccinated or not.
okay.
So if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask?
No,
No.
we are recommending that all people wear masks, but
Yes.
if you are vaccinated and come in close contact,
Okay.
even at lunch while you're eating, you would not have to be quarantined because of your vaccination
Okay,
status.
thank you.
So these are my thoughts. I will put them in a much more written format, which I will send out to you. But I wanted you to at least hear what it is that I am thinking and I am recommending, and that I hope that you agree with.
One thing I wanted to bring up, we got an email from a parent that made me think about something. When I work with hearing impaired parents and children in the clinics, I have a mask that is clear so that they can read my lips, they can see my facial expressions. And I was thinking about it with the younger kids. So one of the things that, we've heard a lot about is being unable to see facial expressions, and for special needs kids, especially not to be able to see the aide's face or the teacher's face can sometimes cause issues. Have we thought about clear masks at all for certain teachers and,
We had all of that PPE as well last year.
okay,
And Lauren worked with her staff to make sure that students with hearing impaired were managed in a way so that they could gain more, I guess the better way is, they were better off than with the teacher wearing a covered mask.
okay. But is it just for students that are hearing impaired, or have you ever thought about it just for younger students to be able to see their teacher's face? Like, I'm thinking
So,
If I-
kindergarten.
There's someone that can answer better than I can.
Yes, we have actually clear masks that were available to all of our special education staff. So we found it helpful for our speech language pathologists to have them. We also invested in the Badger Shield, which is, right, the clear face mask, and it has covering under the neck so that it's not just a mask. They have access to the whole face. We ordered those for all of our special education staff, and then any other teachers who thought it would be beneficial for their classrooms. We still have many extras if people need extras.
Okay.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren. Kate, can you kind of just give us a perspective, since you work in the pediatric, where the folks in your clinic fall on the universal masking? I mean, is it all over the place, even in the clinics,
Well,
even in
in
the
the
building?
clinics, everybody is universally masking because it's a healthcare clinic, so that never changed.
I mean, are they advocating for schools? Or to mask when
So-
you're inside?
I can't speak for everybody, but the majority are, at least in this county, yes.
Okay.
Dane County employees tomorrow are all gonna start wearing masks in Dane County. So I think that's something that's gonna be just kinda coming around.
Oh, I suspect. Bruce, what do you think?
Well, I personally think, I'd rather start a little bit more restrictive and go the other way. Dr. Anderson mentions the nightmare scenario, which is things get worse. I just think there's a lot we don't know about this, but the numbers and stuff do not look good if we just kind of go with kind of a laissez-faire, you can wear it or not wear it.
Yeah.
I also feel like, again, we can take advantage at least through September, hopefully much of October, having opportunities to be outside, which I think will allow people, again, I guess you're still planning to wear a mask though outside. At least.
Well, if
Is that-
if you could maintain social distance outside, then I don't think you would.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because then the CDC is
Right.
recommending that the mask be worn indoors.
right, and that would take care of things like band. I was watching today, one of the teachers giving a lesson, and I just thought it was wonderful, but they're outside,
Mhm.
so.
Arlen, you got anything?
No,
Okay. I would tend, I guess, you know, at this point in time, given that it's, the whole thing is so fluid, it just changes so often, but at this point, I think I probably would agree with Dr. Anderson and his recommendation to universally mask students and staff at the beginning of the school year in the fall. But, yeah, we'll see.
And I will put this in a written format, and I will send it out to all staff and parents. Tomorrow, I discussed and recommend tonight, and then next Monday is when you would vote on it. So if there was things that people thought needed to be examined or addressed, we would have this week to address those, whatever comments or concerns might come our way.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunity to answer questions in the next couple of days.
And I do like the idea of having the monthly meetings, just to kind of address any changes.
It's a great idea.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
It's a great idea.
Or monthly agenda item,
Yep.
I should say.
Anybody have anything else? If not, we'll move along. Discussion on entering into a strategic planning process.
Well, at our last meeting, we had a representative from CISA2 talk to us a little bit about strategic planning. I don't think he got to the points that I had hoped he would get to about what they could do as far as how they might assist us and potential costs that it might cost you. But I think one of the things, I do think strategic planning is extremely important, especially going in, especially one of the next items will be is when you search for your new superintendent. But I think one of the things I'd like you to start really thinking about, do you want an outside provider to help you, or do you want to do it in-house? I could lead you through the process. So I've done this before. The issue with if I'm leading you through the process, it's hard to be a part of the process. So, you know, I can direct you, but it's harder to take notes and, you know, elicit your discussion and be part of the discussion. But I can do that.
What are the
I mean,
costs associated with bringing in the third party?
My guess is, and there's other third-party vendors we can check, I'm going to guess, it depends on how much you want them to do. But I would say between 5 and 10,000. I think lots of things you can do that I think are very important, that you don't need the person. I think the person's good in meeting with the board, meeting with the administrative team, but I think when you meet with, and I strongly encourage, when you meet with staff, when you meet with parents, when you meet with community members, I don't think you need someone there to help you with those discussions. I can help you with those discussions, and then taking those minutes and bringing them back. It's when you coalesce them into what I would think are 3 or 4 major goals, and there are gonna be minor goals underneath, but 3 or 4 major things that you would like to see accomplished, or the direction you wanna see the board go. So I think starting the process is something that we need to do. The big question is, do you want me to look at an outside facilitator? If you do, I will contact people that I know have done this, that I think could do a decent job, and will find cost estimates, and I can bring those to you at the next meeting, so you can determine whether you'd like to stay inside or outside. Once you've made that decision, then we can start a calendar and the first meeting is a meeting just like this, that basically talks about where do you want to see it? Because first it has to be a discussion among the board to find out among the 5 of you as representatives of the community, where do you think the district should be? And then what you do is you start getting ideas from others to help build on, oh, I didn't think about that, or, you know, I did think about that. Yes, I agree with that. So you can put that, and then it makes a full circle to come back to you again, to saying, after we've had all this input, here's what we believe really the direction the school district be for the next 5 times. So you start with yourself, you build out, get more information, feedback, you come back and take all of what you've learned and put it into something that is
A page or two.
front and back,
Yep.
in language that is easy to understand and easy to determine whether or not you're making progress on your goal.
That's a lot easier said than done.
I will make sure that I help you in this process.
Well, that's, my feeling personally is that I would prefer to have you available as a resource along the way as to have you leading the process. And that's, of course, dependent upon the costs associated with bringing someone else in. So if you could do that, that would be
Yeah,
helpful, I
I
think.
will get some cost estimates and what that cost estimate entails.
Mhm.
And you said you've actually done both, and I believe you said
I-
both have worked well?
Well, I've done, I've
You have
been
a
a part of
recommendation, I see.
for me to lead you and all that, I think I can lead you to come to a strategic plan that you would be happy with. So, one, I believe I can do that. I have been a part where, I like to talk. I'd love to, I am shy, but nobody ever believes that. But I have been a part of the old strategic planning process, which I would not submit you to, because it's, the end result isn't what you want. Like I said, you want something that you all understand, that you all agree to, and that people will be able to relate to because they'll understand what you meant.
I just believe, based on your history, your experience, against our lack of experience, embarrassingly so lack of experience, we just have never really taken this on. I think at least this first go-round, it would behoove us to bring someone else in and let you be a part of us.
All right, I will start getting some estimates to bring to, not Monday's meeting, but the Monday after
Sure.
that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are they individuals that just do this, or are they like organizations like WASB?
They're usually
that do-
organizations that have members within that, so like WASB will
Yeah.
have some. WASDA, which is the superintendents, will have some. CISAs,
Mhm.
different CISAs will have those. So there's different groups that have individuals that, have that as one of the ways in which they work with boards and communities. So there'll
Sounds
be
great.
different ones to choose from.
I'm excited. This has been a long time coming.
And never remember, dream big. I'll put that in because so often we are saddled down with dreaming too small. Because we won't accomplish it. You can accomplish a lot more than you think you can when everybody is behind pushing the same way.
We kind of took that on as our SOP in the referendum process. We asked people, give us your wish list, as opposed to what you need. What do you want? But that's,
Yep.
yeah,
Good.
that'd be a part of it. Anything else? Anyone? If not, we will go to shared equity position with the Village of McFarland. Just as a little background on this, we had our first dual meeting between some village board and school board folks, and the village is asking potentially for a shared leadership position in the equity project, or shared equity position with the village, rather than taking the chance of duplicating efforts and such, that maybe joining together as a team might be a way to go. Now, they are significantly further behind in the process than we are here at the district, so I think it would take some determination as to what exactly they were looking for, in that position, as opposed to what we might be looking for in that position. It may not be the same thing.
Well, that's why I contacted Matt, and I'll pronounce Shunke, but
Yeah.
I'm pronouncing it wrong, is the village administrator, and I asked him, what is the village looking for in this position? So we could make a determination whether or not the position is actually something that would be mutually beneficial to both organizations, the village and school. And he had explained to me that though they have talked about it, they really didn't have a sound plan for what they would like this individual to do, and neither did we. So what I suggested is that both of us work on what we would consider a job description for what we would like to see in that individual. So I'll work on that with administrative counsel from our vantage point. They'll work on it. Then we're going to then put those together to find out, is there one person that can truly serve both roles? Or are the roles that we're looking for so different that, one person probably couldn't do both? And take it from there, because right now, though the idea might be something that bears a lot more fruit, it may be that what we both would like in a position really aren't compatible in one position. And then we'll put those together and make a determination. Now, we do have a joint meeting coming up, that if you don't have it on your calendars, I think you all do, on August 24th at 4 o'clock, we have a joint meeting with the village board again. I'm sure this will be one of the topics of discussion, maybe with others, but we'll start putting things together. But we did have a discussion to find out, one of the reasons is I wanted to find out what the village was looking for, and now the village will start putting something together, as will we, so.
Is that
You'll-
the village, is that the village ad hoc committee, which includes, not the full board, but 2 members?
I know I had one, and when I was talking to Matt, I was under the assumption that it was the full board, but, that was my assumption.
Yeah, I think it's.
That may not be the case.
Well, I think it's because I know I was helping set up those dates for a while. I think that's our village ad hoc committee, which is Bruce
Yes.
and Arlen.
That's right.
And it's with their 2 members of their board and Matt. and-
Well, I will double check with Matt, and I'll send out an email to you.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you loop us in on,
Yep.
whatever those discussions entail.
And it would be helpful for us to at least have some kind of the gist of what the school is thinking this
Right.
person's position might be.
Right, I call it administrative council, you've called it a council.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll start working on some
Okay.
of those things we'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
So the issue was brought up at a joint meeting. It has not been forgotten. We're just trying to now determine whether or not a position would meet both of our organization's needs.
yep. Anyone else?
Craig, noticing how at the professional staff, the CERC and the CERC, and all of us were there.
Yeah,
I mean, this board we're on top.
we're interested.
Yeah, so-
That's for sure.
It's been pretty nice.
That's really quite different.
Yeah.
And
It's never happened before.
never.
Let's put it that way.
That's good. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it up.
Well, you don't need a whole board to go through all the committees. We all
Oh, I
represent the
understand.
board. We all have discussion on it. And sometimes you just gotta come in and do business and go on and then share and work it all through. It was very unique.
But I don't think we were slowing anything down. I don't think in any way we were doing that. I just think
No,
it's
but
kind of nice to
I
be on
just-
top.
there's- I mean, we have a whole host of committees.
Well, everybody showed up at the co-curricular committee
Yeah,
meeting
we-
too.
we might, have to park a bus out there just to live in, so,
Some of us bite.
Okay. Superintendent hiring process.
Now, I know this is a little bit like strategic planning, is that, holy smokes, Wayne, we haven't even started the year, now you want us to look
Yep.
for your replacement. But the bottom line, I mailed you or emailed you all a sample draft timeline. But if you basically start the process now, your goal would be that you would end up with your final candidate hired by the end of February. And which is what you want. You want to be able to have one early on. Most districts will be posting for their superintendent position November, December, with the hopes of getting the candidates in January and February. Like the other things that I've mentioned when I talked about the calendar, I am a person who is large on input. What I look at the process is that, roughly speaking, what you do, and first it says you need to make there is, do you want to hire an outside firm to do the search for you? I will tell you, in my last 2 districts, I did the search for them, or I assisted the board in the search, so they didn't have to pay $10,000 or $15,000 for the search. But again, it's something that you will all get a chance to talk about. If you do, I will bring in firms that can tell you what they will do for you and the amount that they would do it for. But I think the things you want to take a look at is, one, the job description. Does the job description for the superintendent truly reflect what you want this individual to do? Because that's the first thing they're gonna take a look at is, well, what is it that you want me to do? And if you want the person that can do everything, they don't exist. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's important when you have your discussions are, where would you like to see an individual that's strong? You know, so take a look at where your direction is, and that's what I think the strategic planning process is good. When you come up with, here's where we want to be in the next 5 years, you can look for an individual that can take you to where you want to go, rather than looking for an individual who will tell you where they think you should go. That's why I think the strategic planning is very important and it fits with this process. Then I think you want to get input, because the more input that you get from your staff and from your parents and from your community, the larger amount of support that individual will have when they take over.
I think the last time we went through this process, the hiring committee included all of that, didn't it? Didn't we have some folks from the community come in as well as some retired folks and some teachers and?
What I think was different is Dr. Anderson was describing a process that gets a lot more feedback up front before the hiring process begins. There seemed to be a lot more activity towards moving forward with a hiring process and having people try to evaluate while we're finishing off the process.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so
That's-
what I'm
that's
looking
what
at
I
is
saw.
that you get input from people on what qualities do they want you to look for when you're looking for a candidate. Once you get all that, then you'll basically have a meeting where you come together and say, based on what we have heard from all of the various stakeholders, we know that this is the type of individual that they're looking for and the strengths that they think would be beneficial. Then what you do is you post. Once you get the applicants in, what I look at in the process that I would recommend is that you would take a look at all of your applicants based on all the input, and you would select down potentially 7 individuals and saying, we think that these 7 individuals, would be worthy of an interview. Then I would recommend you take those 7 individuals and you have the first round of interviews being conducted by staff, parents, and community. In other words, you're not a part of those. You've selected, you now have potentially 2 interview committees, maybe 3, I'd say 2, where they interview the candidates. They get together and they say, based on ours, here are the individuals that we would like to submit to the board for the final interview that we think would be good candidates. And then the board sits down with the final candidates that have been through the process. So let's say you have 3 or 4, that the other said, we think these were worthy to go forward, and we realized the board could pick anyone and we would be happy with their selection. And then you do that, you pick the one, hopefully, it might be 2 and you might need another round of interviews among you, but you would pick that individual. We would then do all of the various checks, we would negotiate the appropriate contract, so that you could then approve the contract at your meeting in potentially February
Yeah.
and make the announcement. But I am a strong proponent for letting people, give you their input on what you look for. Now, I will tell you, this is one of the most important decisions that you will make. As I said, for me, I look at the relationship between a board and the superintendent like a marriage. When the communication is good between the two, the district will move forward because you're all working on the same thing. You're working as a giant team. If the marriage starts to fail, life isn't good, And so mine is to make sure that, if I'm the dating site, that you're finding the most compatible partners to date before you put the ring on the finger.
I really like this process because it's really nice for the candidates to kind of know what our vision is. And then they know what we're looking for, as opposed to, what do you want me to do? And that becomes really a crapshoot.
Now, I will tell you, a benefit that you have, even in just a month that I've been here, is that lots of times a board will need to look for someone with a particular strength. Maybe the strength is in finance. Maybe the strength is in passing referendums. Maybe it's in curriculum. You already have personnel in your district that are very skilled at all those areas. In other words, you don't need an individual that understands the day-to-day finance. You already have that individual.
Right.
Now, it's nice if those two people can talk and there's an understanding when there's discussion. You already have people that with pupil services and with, curriculum. You already have skilled individuals in this district. What my thought is from the outside is you simply need to have someone with skills to be able to come in and help work with this group, as a cohesive team to move forward. You already
Consensus
have the
builders.
individual skills, you just need the person to bring them all together.
Head coach.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and to be, a supporter and an advocate.
a consensus builder.
Yeah, I hate to say a leader, but, a lot of times what people want is someone that will help take their ideas and move them forward.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are my thoughts and ideas to think about. I'll put this on a future agenda so you can, if you want, I will, like in strategic planning, I will get you various firms that have done this and let them come in and talk with you about what they can do in the price. But I will also let you know that should you decide that you want me to be a part of the process, and I was a part in both the last districts, that I can be with you and, help you all the way through until you've, put the ring on the finger.
Oh, that's a discussion for a later time.
Yep,
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Oh, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Can I?
No, yes, you can.
Okay, I just had a couple questions
I'm
that I
sorry,
always
Armin.
ask in that. One is, we're coming close to school beginning, and I don't know what, I'd like to see what each building is asking parents to, like, buy supplies, all that. I've always kind of tracked that a little bit. Is that something that I think the whole board should always be aware of too? What it costs to come out of the blocks, what we're asking parents to pay for and all that on all the buildings. It's something that, if, we never want to forget, because, we're having parents buy a host of things and that, it's a dollar amount. And sometimes if we don't know it, you may want to look at it and make sure that it's right, that you're comfortable with it. We've asked the community to help pay for our buildings, take care of everything around here. The parents, I've always been very generous and that I just don't want to check ourselves that we don't overreach on that good faith. And I think we should always be aware of that and know what's going on. That's, you take the kids out, you get them clothes, you buy all the supplies. Things kind of roll pretty
Lot of
quick.
money.
And you don't know where everybody's at. There's a lot of balls up in the air in different businesses and things are still coming on board now. Last year wasn't a good year for everybody, so you want to be cautious on that. And so I just want the board, my opinion, we should be knowing what the dollar is on all the buildings, because if people ask us, or we can look at how we compare to other schools too, what's going on, what the total dollar amount that we expect to be coming in from something like that, so we know those numbers. If that okay?
Could I ask for clarification?
Well, if you,
Yes,
I think he means the fees and things.
the fees,
Okay, so the fees that were approved in May by the board,
yeah.
the one item I can reflect back on is more and more of our fees have been going away, but we can certainly
And
provide
that's
you.
really good to know.
Well, and the document shows that annually, from
Yeah.
year to year, which fees have been going away. The fact that we've moved forward with making sure that the buildings are charging for the actual dollar amount of the item versus just a lump sum dollar amount. And, yeah, in my tenure, we've continued to reduce fees.
Thank you.
hold down the
But
cost.
we can certainly, as I did with the athletic information that was asked for, I will go back and send you the most current document plus I can piece back.
So Arlen, are you also looking at, so like if we ask parents to purchase certain school supplies, like say at the elementary level, crayons and pencils, that type of
And-
stuff?
And, yeah, I remember starting that, and that was a big deal. And I remember being a custodian here and unloading boxes of Kleenexes, and next thing I know, we're, and we've had money get tight and things happen, and we asked parents to help donate, and parents have done it. I've always kind of never wanted to forget it. Time goes by quicker. Maybe the older you get, time goes by quicker, and you kind of roll in and you go, oh, I missed that, I just want the board to know that you want to always be aware of what we ask and the parents.
Yeah, we can put something together and I'll put it in
Yeah. And I-
McFarland minutes.
And I appreciate that, Jeff. I don't remember everything, so it's at that time where I'll ask the same damn question and.
I think what's also important, just a reminder that each of our buildings, as our social workers and our principals are ever in a situation where we're having, they can waive at any time.
Yep.
There's not a approval process that comes to the district office, it stays at the local, at the building. It's a building decision, and they help out then as well.
Okay.
I think that's wise. All too often, I think we take it for granted that anybody can just go out to, wherever you go to buy all these things, and it's, everybody complains a little bit, but it's something that you do, but it does all add up. And I know when you throw various athletic fees or instrument fees, or, all of those kinds of things that go with the co-curricular part of education, that gets extremely expensive at times, depending upon the sport and depending upon the instrument, I suppose.
And I would say it's rather appropriate you brought this up, Arlen, consider we're right in the middle of the Stuff the Bus campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Sitting
going
out in the
on right
parking
now,
lot.
Which is exactly
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
And-
this
and
community's
people-
been great, but.
people are very generous in that way. Thank you, Arlen.
Yeah.
I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Bruce?
I will second that
Kate?
motion.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes 4-0, and we are adjourned at 8:33.
Well, thank you very much and have a good vacation, Bruce.
Yes, and tomorrow is my 47th, you're talking about marriages.
Yep.
Tomorrow is my 47th anniversary.
Congratulations.